Welcome to the opening day of the Canadian Lutheran Bible Institute, located here in the gorgeous prairies of Camrose, Alberta. Students are beginning to arrive to the school's campus. Thanks to the generosity of the town, CLBI will have their campus located at the cottage school building for the time being, until a new space can be constructed. Pastor Paul C. Nyholm, serving as the school's first dean, gives a friendly wave to all the young men and women arriving to the school. To help with board, students bring in their various items from the farm to help supply the kitchen. Sacks of potatoes, carrots, and turnips are generously piled in the corner. Some students even bring a quarter of beef to provide rich protein to the student body. Out-of-town students will be billeted $5 a month during their time here at the LBI. The generous low price of rent is sure to be a relief during these challenging economic times. Many different Lutheran bodies have come together to generously support this new endeavor. Augustana Lutheran Synod, Norwegian Lutheran Church, United Danish Evangelical Lutheran Church, and the Lutheran Free Church. This small, can-do school is operating with the most high-assured confidence in their Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, to provide everything they need for the year. By God's grace, the Canadian Lutheran Bible Institute will surely succeed in its mission to stand forth His light and His truth.
Welcome to the 72, everyone. It is myself, Cullen, here with Ted, and we are on episode 3 of our series. We've talked about why is CLBI important to us, why is CLBI important, and for this episode, we'd like to touch on why is CLBI. What does that mean, Ted?
It's a strange phrase. Why is, which really what we're trying to get at here as we talk about this and reflect on some of its beginnings. Why did CLBI stick around? Why did it begin? Why is it still around? Since what year, Cullen?
1932. Pretty amazing. There was a lot of challenging things back in 1932. I mean, every year you name is challenges socially, economically, whatever. But yeah, 1932 was the year where they officially established this place, which is a pretty wild thing to think about when you think it's almost been 100 years. And obviously we are. It's challenging to think about what life is actually like. I mean, there was that Dan was generous enough to provide us this little taste of what life was like while CLBI was beginning, what it was like a bit. But this idea of like what else was happening in 1932? The Great Depression was happening then. Obviously, it's post-World War, which was the Great War, the war to end all wars.
Yeah.
And yet we currently know that wasn't the end, but they were in the aftermath of that by about 20 years or 15 years, and it was there's no way that this was just the best possible time and place to do this kind of thing. And yet, that's what I keep coming back to with this is, and yet God was like, I know things are crazy. I always make the joke that God's like, hold my beer, check this out. And he does something crazy, and you're just like, it's
well, and the
unexpected.
response to it, November 14th, 1932, into, I don't know if it was really dry in the harvest, in the growing year of 32, or if that was a little bit later. I know 34 for sure. My father-in-law, they used to put wet blankets over his crib so that he wouldn't suffocate as a newborn.
Dust everywhere.
There was just dust everywhere. I don't know if that was happening exactly then, but regardless, the world economy had crashed, and there was a lot of issues in farming and economy in general. And in November 14th, 1932, for 5 weeks, 61 students came for that period of time. And then in January, that was up to 83 in 1933.
A 33% increase, roughly. Something like that. That's crazy.
That is. It's a beautiful thing. And you have to wonder, why is CLBI? Because God is up to something. And this is what we've been talking about as we've been preparing this, is this sense of, wow, how could you even imagine what seems to be the worst possible time?
Yeah.
And the response to it was huge.
And why is CLBI, like, in general, with that time frame, 1932, crazy, seemingly impossible. Let's even say in Alberta, in the prairies, it's like this is not an affluent part of society at that time. I mean, we're still in the Western world and developing country, but I mean, there's the bigger cities, even like Edmonton. Like, why not any closer to a major center like that? Like this strange draw to this place, Camrose. It was probably, I'm assuming, was still just a town at that point. Wasn't smaller. A city, and so there's geographically it's strange and unlikely, and all of these things. It's kind of like how we touched on the fact that it's what were we talking about in the other? The waste of time.
Yeah.
What a waste! Like the prairies, you've heard people refer to some of the states as like flyover states. It's like it's a waste of, what a waste. It's not California. It's not New York. It's not Florida, or even like Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta. It's like the prairie provinces. They have. Obviously, I'm proud to be from Saskatchewan, but obviously, a mindset is, this ain't Vancouver, this ain't Toronto, so...
Which would have been too big.
What a waste of space, right?
Yeah.
But this, obviously, not a waste of space. And even as Dan was reading some of those facts that come out of the Send Out Your Light...
Reverend Dr. George Evenson.
History book.
Legend.
Pretty much a history of CLBI since 1932. It's just so captivating because you get this glimpse, and it's not that it was just tough, and then once they started going, things just were all great and dandy from then on. Like, I mean, when you think of every major social thing that happened from 1932 until, 2020, you're dealing with civil rights stuff. You're dealing with major issues, even like assassinations of presidents. And I know we're not in the United States, but this is significant news that affects everything. So through all of this, CLBI's there. And even though these things happen, there's that phrase that I kind of keep coming back to. And yet. It's like
still on the board over there.
Yeah, I wrote it on the board before we left, before the students had to go home.
This is a closed campus.
Yeah. And yet, I can't help but think of that when I think of certainly CLBI in the 30s.
Yeah. Going into our 89th year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's extraordinary to see. And as you're talking, I'm pondering. What was it like? Those who were the kind of the founding supporters, those who I wonder what that prayer meeting was like.
Yeah.
When they were praying, doing a Bible study, and realized God was just nudging them, or maybe it was bolt of lightning sort of thing, feel to it, to start a Bible school.
Yeah.
Like, did they first say, like, did they kind of dismiss it?
Yeah.
At first.
And like some guys like, hey guys, I got this crazy idea. Hear me out. And they're like, okay, Jerry.
Yeah.
And then
Jerry's always doing that.
Shenanigans about a Bible school. And like, thanks, Jerry. Yeah, good. Thank you. Like, just so patronizing. Okay, Jerry. Okay, Jerry's gone now. What the heck was all that all about?
What was that about?
You just have no idea, because logically, I don't think I would have been like, hot dang, this is good.
Yeah,
fly.
Let's do it. Yeah. Like the Camrose New York accent.
The rural Alberta. I don't think that was the accent there.
But something was happening, right? There was these nudges, these experiences, and people signed on with commitment and involvement and support and generosity and resilience. All these things had to have shaped this. We're experiencing this in 2020 and heading into a new year, and we have all kinds of information and deep and wide supports networks, and it's still, we're doing this, eh? We're going to start another year in COVID-19.
That's right.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, and there is COVID-19, and yet, we had to
And
send our
yet.
students home early and weren't sure if we'd have a school year coming up. And yet, it's just crazy how you think of that. And this idea of the cloud of witnesses. What a powerful phrase that is, because it's not just it's not phrased as you have financial supporters. You don't have simply physical engineers or even like janitors. It's like those are physical things, but this cloud of witnesses. How you never really you don't associate that with it ever dissipating or leaving. You're just like, this only grows. And then so you're like, it's kind of easy to support something nowadays like CLBI, because we can see it. We can send you a video of what the students were doing today, some stories from their impact mission trips all over the world, and you can see, you're like, this makes sense. Yeah, I'll support that. Yeah. What do you provide people before they even know what it is they're supporting? So it's like there's a element of like, okay, we need supporters, and we hope they're going to get on board with this thing that doesn't really exist yet.
Yeah. And something nudged them, something compelled them to be involved and to be
generous. And again, that call.
Generous.
We were chatting about that call.
Yeah. And we're going to talk a lot about that in the next episode of this final why. But there's something going on in that phrase, Jesus is up to something, is really extraordinary. This cloud of witnesses. Speaking of a cloud of witnesses, I want to touch on a couple of intriguing, just little snippets of those who support this school in the here and now, in 2019 and in 2020. From young people to, there's one letter from a lady in her 90s writing, sadly that she couldn't be part of an event here last spring at this time, our CLBI gala, and she wanted to be here. And she may not know a single student, but just a desire to support, be involved in some way, shape, or form. There's one here, there's actually two. It was at two different times from the same supporter. I gotta find the right one here. Here it is. So this was in 2019. This person says, just wanted to thank you for all the hard work that CLBI is doing to disciple and send out others for the good news of the kingdom. And the same person sent another note. I like the vision that that God has given to the CLBI community. And this one is specific. I like the baking service that Jody Harrison has started. Isn't that beautiful? Like noting, paying attention. Yeah. That's from one person. This one strikes me because it's directly related to the 72. Dear CLBI team, thank you for all you are doing to reach out to others during this challenging time. The 72 is such a great idea. Isn't that? It's just so beautiful as people connect with all of what CLBI means. And sometimes we don't even think about that at any one time. Here's another one. I'll see if it's got an interesting script, so I'll see if I can read it again. Dear friends, we can't imagine a church without an institution like CLBI, where young people and older people too, that's what it says, can prepare for a life of service that CLBI has fulfilled. I'm not sure if I'm reading that correctly. Give me 2 seconds. Can prepare for a life of service. CLBI has fulfilled that program for many years, and we want to see it continue. And that was a donor. All of these are from donor letters. It's extraordinary. Another person. With all the things that are going on in this world, it's good to know that the Lord is still in command. I'm sure you have closed the school for a while or may have to. In any case, I'm sure many expenses will go on, and that's a donation letter. Just
and yes,
beautiful.
They will.
Yes, they will. Yeah, and this is from a lady in her 90s. how I would love to be able to attend the outdoor dining, that was the gala, and music by Eric Rust and Annika Notveit
Wow,
and friends.
little placement there.
I know,
Nice
right?
spot for them.
I am years of age, in her 90s, lives in assisted living and can't make it here. And just how important the support, being a supporter and letting us as a school know. This one is just simply a blessing with a support letter. May God continue to bless this place richly, and each staff member and all who teach during the year. May the students grow in their faith to become faithful witnesses for Christ wherever they go. This is, and this one of my favorites. It's kind of all over the place. It's I'd almost think it's not James Rosted, but I've marked James's homework, and it almost looks
look
like
at
a
that.
James thing.
Interesting.
Things underlined and arrows here and there. James, he's awesome. So God bless you, dear CLBI, as people of all ages come through its doors, are taught and reminded of Jesus' love for each of us, and encouraged to let God guide us daily as we go through life. Just absolutely beautiful excerpts of people who support this school, have been involved. They may or may not have gone here, but it has become important to them because they recognize, just like in 1932, they recognize Jesus is up to something. That's why is CLBI. People are recognizing Jesus is up to something. It's beautiful to just pause in that and realize people's involvement and connection and generosity that was there from 1932 on.
And the idea of giving, obviously, it's a selfless act, and there's humility in it. And the temptation is to really just focus on the large support, and maybe even the obvious support. We've had donors that donate 20, 30, 40, 50,000 at once, and you're like, wow.
Yeah, it
is amazing.
Surprising and beautiful.
And it is. And it's tempting to believe that is worth more.
Right.
And so it's, we give out of what we have, and some are fortunate in that sense to give that amount, and there are those who are giving, once a year to CLBI. There's a $10 envelope coming through, and there are others who physically cannot even do that, who can't even show up for whatever reason, people that maybe aren't able to come, or people that are far away. There's prayer supporters. We send out the prayer list in the crossroads, and so it's an up-to-date prayer thing. And it's incredible that a softly worded prayer in the middle of nowhere, Australia, or a spoken, screamed out prayer prayed in Tibet, all these things. It's like these are equal to that $50,000 donation, or that I think it was about 10 years ago. This $1 million donation. There's that. A lot of people heard about that. $1 million donation. It is just as equal. The currency God uses is not our own, and so we see the investment that is obviously with something like $1 million, the 50,000, but combined with these even squeaked out prayers, or just like barely even thought of prayers that are even before you go to sleep. It's this funny currency God works, and we get to be in the middle of the fruit of all of that.
And one of those fruits, it reminds me of a story. It kind of jumping in. One of the more significant memories between my wife and I is when I was pastoring in East End, Saskatchewan, and my office was in the upper floor of the parsonage, and there was windows all across the front, and I was up at my computer, and I looked just out the window, and I saw my wife coming down the street with two coffees, coming from Alley Cat's coffee shop, just down the corner, around
Shout
the corner.
out there, Alley Cat Coffee in East End, Saskatchewan.
There isn't Alley Cat's coffee anymore. It's just a daycare, but
dear.
Alley Cat's is still there.
Rest in peace.
And so seeing her, but I realized before I saw her, before I realized that she was doing something for me, she was thinking about me before I even knew she was thinking about me. Mm-hmm. Because she had in mind, before she left that coffee shop with a coffee for me and a coffee for her, she had me in mind before I even knew it. And there's something about these letters and these notes and a whispered prayer somewhere, a squeaked out prayer, and the incredible value, because somebody is paying attention to what God is up to. They feel the nudge. They pray, they give, they serve, they volunteer, they stop by with a smile, or potatoes. Or the classic potatoes every year is amazing.
Or a quart of beef or whatever that was.
Yeah, quarter beef from that. Stacks of potatoes, turnips, and carrots.
What you have.
Exactly. And that is an incredible fruit that somebody's connecting and interacting with God about what CLBI is up to, what he's up to here, before we even know it. And that's why I'm incredibly humbled as Dean let me read through some of these. It's just a beautiful thing that I did not know the incredible love, the detail, the nuance of the love, support, generosity, and involvement that is what God uses to make CLBI
the currency,
what he wants it to.
God's currency,
God's
right?
currency.
We just have no idea. And even it can seem illogical, waste of time.
Yep.
Even prayer, it does seem foolish. Look at the physical components of prayer here. That's not a certain way to do it, but listening to some being that I can't physically see, hoping there's a communication there, and toss an amen in there, because that's what you say at the end.
That's what you say at the end.
And you're like, if you looked at it from this logical, this is what it is, this is why it's bogus, you're like, if that's your perspective, you're not wrong. There's that phrase again.
It feels like
but
that.
Again, perhaps this mind shift of this is more useful than I believe it is. And the prayers, and even people, Alan Severson, when I was a student here, he was long retired.
Wow.
He was in the cafeteria baking cookies.
When I was here too, same thing.
For how long?
He is given here
baking cookies.
So
isn't that
much.
Nice? That gentleman's making cookies. I don't think you understand the ministry that he's doing here. It's all these things that have to do with the same thing, but on the surface they're seemingly scattered and haphazard. The illusion.
I was going to say disconnected, but haphazard.
But the illusion is this haphazard stuff that if things happen, it's just happenstance, and coincidence, it's because, random things happen. And you're like, I don't know about this. Because something cannot come into existence without a creator, and obviously we can talk about evolution versus creation, which is not this podcast,
not this one,
but this concept of nothing can just become into being, without being made. Nothing in the universe was ever just there.
Nothing that is made has been made without him.
And that's exactly, and it's right in this. It's not, there were some Lutheran Scandinavians here in the prairies who just got together and were like, we don't have anything to do. It's the 1930s.
Let's not Bible college.
Let's just make life harder on ourselves. It's just without God, this wouldn't have been possible to create. It wouldn't have been possible to sustain over the years, and it certainly would not have been possible during a global pandemic. Without God. So why is CLBI? Because God is up to something. He's messing around.
He's messing around with intention, with purpose, with a desire, and with full understanding of all the complexity. And just reading a few notes from these letters realizes God, he sees this, and it's just beautiful. One of the things also that I loved about Dr. Evenson's history there is that the Camrose School District allowed the CLBI to have desks for a period of time. They just let them borrow them. And I just love that interaction and that relationship. And God is up to something as he builds those relationships. It's extraordinary to note all the story, the involvement, the connection, the generosity, and the resilience. Amazing.
Yeah, and it's, like we've been touching on this history of CLBI, the Send Out Your Light. It covers everything from 1932. I think the last edition's about 96, 97 maybe. But it goes through so much detail. And it's almost like we take for granted just that there were people that, I mean, being a younger person, it's like we just know people have supported this forever, and that's great. But it really, like reading literature like that and the letters and seeing people, now that I'm on staff, you kind of get behind the veil a little bit when you work somewhere as opposed to like attending. Yeah. So you see, A, how things actually work, which is an eye-opener as staff, and B, what you get to see year to year to year. I know we've only been here a couple of years, but as a student, you have a limited view. I had a limited view, and I came and went as a student, and so those 2 years from 06 to 08 were my only real, genuine, first-hand perspective. And now I'm seeing, oh yeah, of course it would need people like this. Of course this random program at a church in Minnesota has been supporting us since the 60s. You know, It's just like random stuff like that. You're just like, this, it's like the more you learn, the more you love about something. And you're like, I can't help but be like, this is a miracle that it's still standing, that it's supporters. And then to boot, there's amazing people to work with. It's just like, this is the cherry on top. And it's actually enjoyable. It's not just a foundation that has stood the test of time. I don't think CLBI has necessarily just stood the test of time, because we're not this kind of firm standing wall in the midst of a hurricane. Yeah. I feel like we're getting blown around in the hurricane because we're like, this is what life is like. And God's like, yeah.
And I'm in it.
I'm in that too. Yeah. The temptation is to be like, we're holding strong because of what we do. And hey, we're not even holding strong. Like, there's no joke about it, because in reality, a school like us can totally be done at any point in time out of nothing I did or you did or what Jody did with the baking. You know, it's just like, it has nothing to do with that. But in the hurricane, God is holding us, and he's just like, yeah, do you believe that I have you now? Yeah. Like, does it take a hurricane to believe that I have you? And we're like, okay, I guess you're right.
I guess you're right. Yeah. This has been a fantastic conversation again, Colin. Yeah. So awesome. And we have one left, looking at down to the why.
Yeah, we're whittling it down. Why is CLBI was this one, which is, it's tempting to just kind of blow past it and be like, we want to go deeper. We want to go deeper. And, too fast, too soon. But there's so much information and so much history here. Not only like chronological history, but the spiritual history and prayer history. And then we chop it down one more time. And why? Why? Which is a terrifying question to ask, because you may find answers.
Yes, you may find answers in unlikely places. We'll talk about a SaskTel call display ad a song from Frozen 2.
Yeah. Oh boy, I can't wait.
I can't wait either. Thanks for tuning in, friends. It was a delightful time. And again, if you want to interact with us with any questions, any ideas, thoughts, send them to
podcast@clbi.edu. That's the one. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the 72 Podcast, presented by the Canadian Lutheran Bible Institute in Camrose, Alberta, Canada.